Okay, welcome to Magical Musings, a brand new series of podcasts on the Beardos Media podcast. Now, these are brand new episodes with topics which deserve discussion. As you also know, given by the track record we have here on Beardos Media, we talk about subjects and topics which are considered taboo, or things which you probably think about but don't talk about in public. And this is where we take the stick for you. But there are people within our communities or within small pockets of communities who are probably having the same conversations, particularly within the last 6 to 8 months. There are conversations which have been bubbling away, which we thought, okay, you know what? Now's the time. We need to start talking about these things more publicly, more openly, A, because we need to learn from each other. 2, B, even, we need to educate each other. 3, we need to understand each other. We need to understand where the community is right now. Where do we feel we fit in or we don't fit in? There's a clash of values at times. There's a clash of thinking at times. But the best discussions are had where you may not necessarily agree, but you can still talk about it, you know? So without further ado, we're going to introduce to you our new co-hosts. I'll start with the wide angle screen so you can see us all on your screens. Right in front of me, we have Ustad Kamil. We also have Brother Ibrar here, and we have Brother Asir here. So these are guys from within our local community. We've had discussions between us, which we thought, you know what, these would make for a great podcast. I'm going to start with Ustad Kamil because he's sat right in front of me. He's right in my eye line. So first of all, assalamu alaikum and welcome, Ustad Kamil.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
It's a pleasure and honor to host you here in this little cave of ours.
The Bat Cave.
The
Really liking it. Really liking it.
Thank you very much. So just as a way of short introduction, I don't want to sound like Cilla Black, who you are and where do you come from? But where do you come from and what made you feel that these are conversations that are worth having?
Okay, so my name's Kamil Hussain. Grew up in Birmingham, and I think just knowing the fact that we're growing up in these areas, there was always a lot of arguments. There was always a lot of trouble in the community. Look, we're Muslims, and if you've been in Sparkbrook, Spark Hill, Small Heath, those areas, it's mainly Muslims there. Yet there's so much trouble. There's so much turbulence within families, outside. And one of the things I think you've already hinted at earlier is this very small notion of we've got to at least be able to have a conversation. Just talk about things. Even if you disagree, talk about things, which people don't know how to do.
It's so true, isn't it?
Like where I grew up, it was if you disagree with someone, then you got to hate them forever.
Yeah.
And that's how that went. So either way, like it pushed me down a line where I started studying Alhamdulillah, Summa Alhamdulillah. Allah, I don't even know how. Just one day a random friend of mine said, he goes, do you know Sheikh's teaching Arabic? You want to go? No idea what I was in for. Go down and start doing Arabic and start doing this. Alhamdulillah, I've studied probably close to maybe about 8 years of the Alim course and then probably a few more years just independently. Okay. So I've done probably more than a decade's worth of study in the Islamic sciences, and I've got a degree in sociology, master's in psychology, alhamdulillah. So then I've been teaching here in Burton in Oxford Street Masjid for the past almost a decade as well, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So as I've been here,
part of the furniture now.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah. Basically, it's gotten to that point where now people do recognize me, even though they still ask me about the road names and I have no idea in Burton. But Burton Sharif is Burton Sharif.
Burton Sharif is Burton Sharif. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. We'll move on swiftly to Brother Ibrar, who's also right in front of me. Who are you and where do you come from?
I'm from Burton-on-Trent.
What's your nickname? But people will know you.
Barry.
Yeah, a.k.a. Barry, yes.
Yeah, so from Burton, and what do you want to know, Majid? Why I got involved or...
Yeah, so, you and I had a conversation before Ramadan, remember, and we were talking about the state of affairs. We were general conversations like some of the brothers have, and then you thought, you know what, this would be a good idea to have these conversations over a podcast. So tell me why you felt it would be a good idea to have a conversation on a
Definitely,
podcast.
obviously, we both were having discussions a lot
Mm.
with Palestine, what was happening. And like we discussed that, I think a lot of people feel things personally, but they don't know how to air these views. I think Palestine showed us that there were certain individuals who publicly represented what the people felt, and that actually motivated people to speak out. And actually, it gathered a massive opinion and a public opinion out there. And for me, was that why can't we do the same when it comes to all other issues? Like you said, everyone in our community, nationally, there's certain issues. I mean, when we open up the topics we're going to discuss, you'll see that publicly we need to discuss this in order for us to learn, in order to guide the people, to educate them, to help them. And a lot of these, like we discussed, is that we will see that the only way is to bring the Islamic culture out on these topics. And when we give this to our community and learn from it ourselves, we will realize that we can solve our problems. So that was what really motivated me to get involved in this and try to obviously give my point of view on it as well, inshallah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And this is it, isn't it? I think because we follow a theology, we follow Islam as a way of life, there is naturally going to be a clash of values and ethics and morals between what we believe in our faith and our way of life, and maybe sometimes what is propagated outside of that and how it affects not just us but the next generation. And this is another thing that we were talking
Yes.
about, wasn't it? Right? And we thought, okay, well, how do we navigate through these? Because there are a lot of, I mean, being Muslim is one thing, but there are a lot of non-Muslims who are looking for an alternative to what they've been accustomed to. But as soon as you remove those foundations or wobble those foundations, there is nothing else that they've come across which they felt, except for those of them who embraced Islam, a lot of them who found their answers in Islam. But that being said, we have a wide audience on this platform. So I'm sure there'll be people who will be intrigued to understand what is it that we're talking about and how do we differ and what alternatives do we have to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's like we discussed, Majid, that at the end of the day, a lot of people, whether you're Muslim or non-Muslim, they do the things they're doing not because they're bad, not because they're silly, because they don't see any alternative way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that's where I see that a lot of times when I was living the life I was living and I thought I was doing the right things, but actually wasn't. It was only when someone else showed me a different way of doing things that helped me improve my life. And that was the whole reason for me with the podcast is let's talk about these things publicly. Let's see, is there an alternative or a better way of living?
100%. And moving on swiftly, we have Brother Asad here, aka Bobby. Go on then, you introduce yourself.
So my name is Asar, aka Bobby,
Yeah.
and these conversations that have been happening in the shadows, in the background, they're not only conversations, but they're quite inspiring. Actually, I think there's a lot of talent in our community.
Yeah.
I think there's great ideas. I think people are punching above their weight in the community, and I think that needs to be showcased. And that's why I feel that I needed to contribute to this kind of, podcast to say that, okay, we as a community have come a long way, but the journey, we're still on there. And there's some challenges ahead. Go right, go left. But we have some solutions, some ideas, some ways of thinking, which I think we can help together, navigate some of the challenges, I think.
Yep, 100%. I think, look, I think there's no doubt that we have a bank of very talented people in our community, a pool of very talented people. They're themselves in the shadows. There are a lot of people who we might not even know. And we call out to them as well, actually, because these conversations aren't just to be had between us guys. We want other people to contribute and give us their thoughts as well, because there's one, we don't want to be the frogs in the well, thinking this is the whole world and that's it. We need to get out of the world to understand there's a bigger world out there, right? So there are a lot of talented people out there who have a lot of skills and things about them which are very valuable for not just today, but tomorrow. And these are people who have a lot to offer. Maybe they've not been given the opportunity. And they need to be showcased within our communities to say, look, celebrate this guy. You know, he knows what he's talking about. Ustad Kamil come from Birmingham, and you know, he's done a lot of great stuff in the local masjid, and he shares his content. So we celebrate that because he's a brother, and we understand the importance of what he shares. Similarly, we have other people within the community who have great skills, but we need to showcase them. We need to, you know, find them resourceful for us, and they need to be made to feel comfortable enough to do that, because that's another thing, isn't it? A lot of people don't want to come forward because A, they might be shy, like you guys were.
Everyone's shaking it, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, these guys, a couple of them, so brother Ibrar and Asir, these guys were literally shivering in their boots before they came on.
We were
online.
just hungry this time. We didn't offer us any food.
It's a present tense.
Well, there's bottles of water here, by the way. I need to grab one in a second, by the way. But yeah, we need to come out of our comfort zones. This is the basic thing, isn't it? Because if we stay in our comfort zone, we're not gonna, you know, in the comfort zone. I'm quite unorthodox when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, people say break out of your comfort zone. I like to stay in my comfort zone. I think comfort zones are great. They're the best places to be psychologically.
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable, uncomfortable. And as you know, with psychology, you know, with the human mind and the body is designed to protect itself.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but what I do say is, the more things you become comfortable with, your comfort zone becomes to stretch and become bigger. So you become more comfortable in doing more things, like these things, like coming on podcasts, like being in front of the camera, which some of you guys haven't been accustomed to. But you know what? Everybody gets stage fright every once in a while. But here's where it gets really interesting, because another reason why we got together was because of the topics themselves. So, Ustad Kamil, you picked the topic of marriage. Tell us why you felt marriage was an important topic to talk about within the community.
So I think when it comes to marriage, like as Muslims, we focus very much on marriage. Our relationships, we don't, for anyone who does know about Islam, generally speaking, they know that we avoid dating, we avoid this kind of lifestyle. And even touching between mixing of the genders, for example, we try to minimize and limit that as much as we can. But in doing so, the married unit, the family unit, is one of the most stable and stabilizing forces, institutions that we have in our societies, in our communities. Through a stable marriage, we have strong and we have, the statistics have shown this, we have healthier mentally and physically and emotionally and spiritually healthier children, and the community grows like this. Of course, the problem is we have too many people getting married who don't actually understand. And this comes back to what we were speaking about, what you guys were mentioning earlier, the Islamic culture.
Yes.
There's a beauty in, when we say Islamic culture, what is the, because Islam is set as a religion for everyone in the world, and it accepts every culture to just spread the way they want to spread, basically. The only thing that we try to do in every culture, though, is try bringing whatever aspect of that culture is back to the Sunnah a little bit. So we try connecting it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the beauty of connecting with the Prophet, Allah tells us that he's the perfect role model for you. There's something in the Sunnah for everybody, and people don't understand this. I think even in our communities, people actually really struggle with this. So if we have healthier relationships, our children will be in a better place. I saw a video a couple of days ago where a guy's doing this prank. You know how all these people are going around doing, and he's basically walking around with this bag full of money. It's fake money, and he's got like thousands in there. And guy goes, "Oh, what you doing?" And he goes, "Walking through the hood with my, see-through bag of money." So that's the meme. And guy goes, "Oh, what you doing there with all that money?" And he just grabs it and runs out. I'm like, that was your first instinct. But it makes you think, if this is what people are, we've got people nowadays who are only concerned with a hedonistic lifestyle. It's all money, it's material, it's wealth, it's this, nothing about spirituality. And I believe part of the problem, and does, whether we like it or not, starts at home. Yeah. If men don't know how to treat their women properly, if women don't know how to treat their men properly, this is cause discord in the household. When that happens, it just has a ripple effect and affects everything. When the families are destroyed, communities are destroyed, whether we like it or not. And this is just, I mean, you could argue, but that didn't happen in my family, and my mom was a single mom. Alhamdulillah, she was probably a great woman. but the statistics speak bigger than your anecdotal truth. And that's why I think it needs to be spoken about, not only relationships, but there's a second reason. The second reason why I want to talk about relationships specifically. The first sin, right? The very first sin that, look, when it came to Prophet Idris alayhi salam and just soon after that, it wasn't that people started turning to shirk because they thought it makes sense to worship these idols instead of Allah. That wasn't the very first thing that took people towards kufr, towards shirk, was they first started committing zina. And then from zina, it became, why is my happiness being trampled on? So it became this idea that Allah mentioned in the Quran, that people turn their own desires into gods. And relationships are great. They exemplify this notion that people need to learn how to be healthy in a relationship. There's compromise. It's not all about you anymore. And I think that this is a huge, it just opens up to a lot of discussions as well.
Yeah.
So
no, it's interesting though. It's interesting.
We'll have quite a
because
lot of discussions
I think
on that.
what you've just mentioned there alone is just thought-provoking, because people could be thinking, what? It's not about Instagram pictures, us looking happy on photos together.
Exactly.
And,
We're all dressed up now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another topic on its own, isn't it? How
100%,
people
100%.
online, they look like they have the perfect relationship.
Yes.
As soon as the cameras stopped clicking, and that's it, they're just on their phones. It's like you two sitting on the sofa, but on the opposite ends.
There's a lot of love there. There's a lot of love there. But
and you don't have your cameras out either.
You could start a podcast on this topic on its own now. But I think one important point, like we discussed as well, Ustad, was that I think when we talk about the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ or the Islamic culture, and this is the kind of things we want to bring out in the podcast. They're simple things like, what were the values that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us regarding marriage? So simple things you take. You know, like, is it about thinking about yourself or thinking about others? What did our parents' generation tell us? This advice and the siyah they gave us was grounded in Islam.
Because marriage is a responsibility. It's not a feel-good factor for
That's
you.
right. So what did they say? That first thing is that when you get married, or if you have children, your life changes from thinking about yourself, well, it should never be that anyway, but thinking about others. And you see the teachings of Islam, whether you've got children or not, that's the ethos of your life, is always 100%. About others.
Yeah.
And you'll see that biggest reason why marriage breakups happen or family breakups is actually when you start thinking it's all about me.
Yeah.
And it's not about someone else. Then this why me notion goes out the window.
And I think one of the other reasons why I did want to bring it up is because this point that people are trying to make it, we've got things like the red pill movement, and we've got all that kind of stuff where guys, young people are looking at that and thinking, you know what, that makes sense, because there are kernels of truth in what they say. Like some parts of it, it's not, but there are some points in it that you think that actually makes some sense. No, that does. But then the fact that they're so far away, like there's a lot of hypocrisy embedded in there, but because people don't know how to untangle that hypocrisy.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. There's this idea that women who've slept around with a lot of men, that lowers their value. But then those same men say men who sleep around with a lot of women, that gives them more value. It makes them more high value. The hypocrisy is this: if those men were to come across a virgin woman, in their eyes pure, that should make her higher value. Are they willing to marry her before doing anything with her? Most likely not, because the lifestyle they're living, they want to taste the goods before they buy it. That's what they want. They want to take it for a test run, whatever they want to do. But they want to do that. And now when they're doing that, they say, oh, but I'm monogamous in that relationship. I'm only with this one. Fine. But you haven't married her. There's a lack of commitment there.
Yeah, lack of taking that responsibility.
Exactly. You're not taking that. Or you're still basically just, it's hedonistic. You want your fun. And the moment she shows a sign of not supporting you, she speaks up or something, and you say, how dare you? I'm the prize.
Yeah.
Now what you're going to do is kick her to the curb. So what you're saying is she's now low value because you made her low value by sleeping with her, adding to the body count.
Yeah.
You've done that. You're causing the problem. And then you're saying, we're after pure women.
Yeah.
That's hypocrisy. That's pure. But people don't know how to untangle that. So they see it as, nah, because I'm the prize.
In it.
I saw a TikTok
'cause-
video. Do you get it? And he's like, how are you a pro? Like, bro.
We've
Look
came
at you.
Carmel down. This is Burton on Trent Carmel, not Burton.
He said he goes taboo. We're okay.
This is
with
right.
that.
Bring it on, man. That's what I say. Bring it on.
Alhamdulillah.
But on that note, because this is very closely related to the topic you picked.
That's right. I
one
was
of them
thinking
is
he's going
about
over my topic.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
didn't
our
pick. None of you
our
wanted to pick it, so I had to talk about it.
our children, our future. Barry, go on. Why did you want to talk about children and the future?
Obviously, we had a list of topics which we all generated. I thought,
So you just picked one up.
pick one of them. Okay, now, I responded the last one, so I thought I've got left with this one. I think one is raising children myself, being involved with a lot of youth myself. And I think for us, it's our biggest focus. It is our future. You know, they're saying our youth are our future.
Yeah.
And for me, why I wanted to talk about it, I feel as growing up, like even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallam tell us that those years are they're very important years. They are the most dangerous, but the most important years. When you're growing up, and I feel the values and the culture you get in those years and the behavior you have, you'll carry that.
Yeah.
And for me, it was that, you know, I think we need to, a lot of the times when we talk about the youth or the next generation, even myself sometimes, it's quite negative. Look at them, look what they're doing. But actually, if you look at it in a different way, that subhanAllah, our youth, surrounded by so much, when we were growing up, it was different. Social media wasn't as big.
Yeah.
Bombarded with so much kufr. But still, you look at it, subhanAllah, you go to any secondary school, you got a lot more girls covering now than you ever had.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And, you know, you look at these things, you even look at the issue of Palestine. SubhanAllah, we thought we lost the next generation. SubhanAllah, look in the schools how vocal they were.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at it more positively, you'll see that our next generation is our future.
Of course.
And alhamdulillah, wherever we've held their hand, whenever we've guided them, they've come towards the deen.
Here's on that point though, because I was having this discussion with somebody from the local mosques. I think I might have had this discussion with Bobby as well, and possibly even you, Ibrahim. There is a shortfall from within our community though, where we're not mentoring the kids to become the next leaders. From us, as in us who are in the real world living day to day, we've not invested enough of our resources or our time mentoring them, educating them, coaching them to become the next chairperson of the masjid, the trustee of the masjid, leaders within the community, leaders within certain initiatives, charities, or whatever the good things are that we would like to be able to see within our communities. We've not paved that path for them sufficiently enough. So whilst you're right, there are some positives there, and there are probably more positives than we realize because of the Palestine issue. We've seen the youth come out, in their numbers, showing how passionate they are about defending the honor of our ummah. We need to take that energy and divert it in the right way. And I think this is where we, as the higher generation, like the older generation in inverted commas, I'm specifically pointing towards you, Barry.
I'm still having nightmares when you told me, hey, Brad, you're the oldest. I'm like, oh
you
my God.
you are the eldest here, yeah.
I was looking at Bobby and I was thinking, do I look older than Bobby? SubhanAllah.
Bobby's
Is that even a question?
Is it?
Bobby
Bobby's
looks like 24, mashallah.
Yeah.
He's a silver fox.
No, but I
Bobby.
think that you're right. You know, with the youth are basically right now, they are running on, they're basically running on passion.
Yeah.
That's what's driving them.
100%.
And they need guidance, they need
Yeah.
direction. And until they're given that direction, passion alone can
Yeah.
easily just, it could basically just end up in the bad end of it rather than the good end.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's look at. I mean, you work with Masajid
Yeah.
quite closely. I think everybody in this room does. Most of you do, anyway. And you see that the people who are running the mosques, there's a revolving door.
Yeah.
The executive committees, they come and go.
Yeah.
If anything, they've been able to successfully sustain what our forefathers established.
Yeah. A status quo.
Yeah.
And just maintain the basics.
That's it. Not moved it to the next level up.
Yeah.
So what we need to try and unpack, what is that next level up? What does it look like? What is the role of a masjid? How well is it equipping our community for the future and the children, what is it providing for them? How is it providing it for them? And with what intention is it providing it for them? And what is the next step forward? Because there's one thing, I mean, a lot of our mosques, they do complain that, oh, but you're good again. You know what I mean? They're bigger again, again, drugs, whatever, you know, all the yada, yada, yada. But what are you doing about it? You know, there's one thing having youth clubs, which is great. It's fantastic. I'm all up for it. And I commend the people who have put their time and effort and their resources in their own time, putting together resources and putting these initiatives together for the youth clubs. What about after that? What comes after that?
I think that today I had a class with some girls at the madrasa, and we were having this discussion, and it kind of went like, with this issue, first thing I started noticing straight away with the girls is aspirations. What do I want to be when I grow up? Job. When I reflect on that, and I thought, you know what, with my mom's generation, grandparents' generation, that wasn't even the question. So then I linked it, because we were talking about Sirah Rasul Sallam and what they had bought in terms of guidance. Okay, what's your aspiration for the akhirah? What do you want to be? Where do you want to be? I go, that's the bigger picture here. Yeah. Let's not bog ourselves down on this kind of trivial issue. But just going back to a couple of the points, I think they're all interlinked, actually. The marriage, raising children. I was at a weekend, a few weddings, last 2 weekends in Birmingham and London. The biggest discussion, honestly, was the state of play of the actual process of the wedding, all being mixed and, you know, whatever else. But the interesting discussion I had with this lad from Birmingham, and he was a security guard.
Kudos to
See, all
Ustad
the-
Kamil.
all the
He's
big
got a point
discussions
here,
are
man.
from
The
guys
best
from
discussion come from the
Birmingham,
Birmingham lads.
Birmingham guy.
Brap.
He was really good, because he that's his job. He's a photographer, wedding photographer, and he was a security guard for the weddings. And he was telling me stories after stories after stories of where this is all going wrong. Then one of the places, one of the venues, the owner, right, he was there having gupshup with him. He said the same thing, exactly the same thing. He says, I don't know which direction we're going. We're doomed, right? So everyone's having this discussion, you see? And marriage, and then on top of that, the raising of the children is virtually taboo in the sense that raising daughters, you want them to be homely. Now I've got a red flag against my name. I've said it publicly. Do you see? Whereas I encourage, one of the homeworks I gave to the girls, I go, this weekend, you need to cook for your moms. Do you see? So you got to push the value, because our values are different, right?
Yeah.
And they are what give us resilience. So the point about having a stable marriage, having good kids, is actually you can do more in life.
Yeah.
You're not drowning. Anyone I know that's been involved in marital problems, depression, loneliness, sleeplessness, insomnia, that's it. They can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Just on the point as well, sorry, Majid, on the next generation, I think the important thing and why starting these podcasts was that put yourself in a teenager's shoes. Even forget teenager now. You look at sometimes people in their 30s, 40s, some of the things they end up doing, and you think, why? But yet you look at the influences now and the pressure and the culture they're bombarded with. You look at social media, the influences, the lifestyles that are thrown towards them, and how things are glamorized, and made look attractive. Do we actually blame the youth? If we don't give them some Islamic culture and some good grounding, then we do blame them for being attracted towards that. And similar for me, like I said, was the alternative cultures like Ustad Kamal has done there. When you go through the tafsir of the Quran, when you go through the great men and women of Islam, when you go through the seerah, you think, hold on a minute, wow. How much of a more beautiful life can you live by following Islam than what's being pushed to me by these influences? So I think therefore there's
Well, that's
it's
all
very
fake
important for us.
anyway.
Yes.
A lot of that is fake.
But if they've got nothing else, do you see, then they're going to end up following.
they
that.
aspire towards
right, yes.
the glam and the bling bling.
And that's why
isn't it?
these topics for us, I think, it'd be good for us to open up. You know, who do you follow, the
100%.
Prophet Sallallahu or the influencers?
See, and that's because I was having the same conversation as well with some of the students, and I was actually speaking to this other brother here from Burton as well, and he just said
Tell us you had a great conversation.
Here's a great conversation.
Excellent.
Big
a
up
point
big
for
up.
Burton Brothers. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Now, this guy, he's a young lad. He's like in his mid-20s, early 20s, and very clued on. He's trying to, get married and so on and so forth. But he mentioned a point. He said, he goes, nowadays, he goes, we're living in a time where people are content to be Muslim. They're not interested. They're not really. In fact, a lot of people prevent themselves and prevent others from digging too deep in Islam. So they're happy just being Muslim, saying, I am a Muslim, and besides that, who are you to judge me? Only God can judge me.
Yeah.
That's where Tupac
Was
comes
it
back.
Tupac? Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Tupac comes back.
It's showing this from Birmingham.
But that's all that happens. Like the way they talk about it is, no, but at least I'm a Muslim. And this is what we were saying as well about the mosque, and we're talking about all these. We're happy with having such a low standard when it comes to our deen in every aspect, even families. What we were saying about family, we're just like, I've heard people say, I'm at least glad that my daughter is happy to be a Muslim.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to push the hijab on her because I'm happy. Like, why is your standard so low?
So low.
If it came to her getting a job, if it came to your son, are you going to say, just be happy at the bottom? Barely scraping a living? Or are you going to say, no, why don't you go for promotions? We're happy to push for higher skill sets in every other aspect.
The secular system. Yeah.
Exactly.
We were talking about this the other day, didn't we? Like when it comes to the deen aspects, when it comes to religious education, back in the day and even up till now, most parents have been, I'm going to get you to, or the child is going to get focused on the deen aspect because school na kamma hai.
Yeah.
Madrasa pe chodo.
Let's send
them to the madrasa, to the masjid.
All the rejects go and do.
I know, but since our time, schools, they're not. Before it was like you're just living it, and we became polluted, right? Now they're educating our children to become polluted.
Yeah.
Bada fark hai. There's a huge difference, and the point being is, if they start believing in, for example, I have a right, to do X, Y, Z. Parents, and honestly, parents, by the time it comes to marriageable age, parents have given up.
Yeah, but it's like a discussion we had, Bobby, that with the start, that you look at it now, though, I don't think, and it's about looking at things positively as well, that parents send their children to the madrasa just now. It's a 5 to 7 thing. It's just routine. Get them there. But I think you look at every single masjid, even in Burton now, it's full. The madrasas are full.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ustad Gamal can tell us with Uxbridge Street what happened, the journey, how many children go there. Because actually the parents see now the only way they're going to safeguard their children is by giving them some Islamic culture.
See, I half agree with that. The reason being is I think parents, so they've got this idea in their head. Islamic culture makes sense. We need to instill that. We don't want to lose that. So these are almost slogans. Whereas when it comes to actually what needs to be taught, I think most of them, and this is very unfortunate, really have a clue as to what needs to be taught. So like where I grew up, it was simply a case of every single house was competing with the next house. My kid finished reading Quran at 10. Well, my kid finished by 9. Now what? Far paro. Dobara paro. And now what? He could read Quran. He could read namaz. What now? What now? What now? Yeah. And then, so when you, and I think most of we grew up in you get a sortie if you misbehave in it. When you sit in front of the Qaeda and you rock back and forth. Alif Be. Even that you read it in Urdu rather than Arabic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So when all of this happened, that generation, they genuinely thought they've clocked mosque.
Yeah. 100%.
When you finish reading Quran, your kid's finished. By the time he's 12, 13, he's finished Quran twice. What's left? I've had these discussions even here. I've had people arguing with me when I've been teaching fiqh. or I've been going through, all right, so this is the fiqh for prayer times, for example. You could pray your salah at this time. So one example, actually, there was a kid, he's about 15, 16 years old, and he's praying his namaz now. He's praying of his own accord. His family's not really pushing him. He's praying. His granddad comes in and he says to me, he goes, Kamil Saab, stop teaching my grandson the wrong things. I said, I'm sorry, what did I teach him? And he goes, he's reading Maghrib late. And I go, wow, what time is he reading? Like, in my head, I'm thinking Maghrib starts, let's say it starts at 9.
Yeah.
If he's praying anything after 10, 15, 10, 20, now that's late for me. Basically, if Isha time has begun, that's late. If he's prayed it in his time, I'm going to be lenient. He goes, Maghrib starts at 9 o'clock. He's praying at 9:25. And I go, Allah ne bandiyo, like, I go, you got to think about something. I said it with a lot of respect, but I go, you know, there's people coming in and they complain, my putter's doing drugs, chasing after girls. You came in complaining, Mara puttar namaz padhna piya.
Yeah, that's what you know what the funny thing is, though?
Because it's slightly different to the package they've been sold.
Exactly.
And that's what they're accustomed to. So I think that some of these bubbles do need to burst a little bit. Not to say that the ideals were completely, wallahi, like, we have to respect and honor the fact that our elders did this. But there was a lot that it's still lacking and needs to be built on.
There is a lot. You're right, because I think, sorry, just to cut you short there, I think there's a big difference between the old school patti parna, qaida parna, namaz parna, Quran parna, and the academic structural training.
Yeah.
Now, when you have had the ratta style, the repetition style, that you read this and repeat it, you know, eat, sleep, repeat, right? That kind of style of learning the deen, then it's just going to be a ritualistic thing, and that is the deen for you. That is your belief. Your belief has been constrained. But when you talk to somebody who's an academic, somebody who's learned, somebody who's learned the fiqh around certain things, the jurisprudence, the technicalities between the allowances and the things that aren't allowed, they can't grasp it.
Because now you're
opening them up to more possibilities which they've been restricted to in the past.
Now it's not your teacher anymore telling you what's what. This is A, that's B. It's not restricted to the mosque. It's now in every part of your life. And I think for our kids, this is what we need as well. We need them. There's the hadith, ittaqillah haythuma kunt. Be aware of Allah, fear Allah, wherever you find yourself, wherever you are. Now imagine if the Muslims were actually aware of this, whether they're in school, whether they're in college, whether they're anywhere. They would be stuck in the middle of a club, waliyazu billah, but they're scared of Allah. They're not doing anything. That's how it should be. But this is a high maqam, and we ask Allah to grant us this maqam.
On the note of fearing Allah, Bobby, you had the topic of Palestine and elections. Let's mix them into one. So why did you feel that this was... I think personally, we're all pretty much in agreement here. This is going to be an ongoing topic. I think Palestine will probably be a subject where we end up touching on or discussing in all of our podcasts. But there's going to be obviously times when we need to dedicate more time to this particular topic, especially now with the elections coming.
Yeah.
All yours.
So Palestine is deep, you know, what's happening, the images, it cuts deep. Everyone has shed a tear, you know. All our prayers we involved is Palestine. Some of us have travelled to Cairo to help displaced Palestinians.
Yeah, we've travelled together.
Yeah, that's how we've kind of first met, really.
Yeah.
And then people have dug deep into their pockets to give money for Palestine. Now, we're at this junction now, I think, where we're nice people. And we have seen injustice and we've called it out. We've said it again and again and again. And they keep on putting more and more like rocks on our shoulders. Your hate marches, shadow banning. You were talking about you've been shadow banned, on certain platforms. We've seen all of this. Children at schools can't, for example, wear a Palestinian T-shirt, etc. So there's all of this, but our jazba, our love, our strength, we are not budging one bit.
Hmm.
1 millimeter, the community has not moved.
Yeah.
Right. The question, and I think this is my thinking, this is some of the discussions I've been having, is they try to brand us on the protests,
Yeah.
silence our voices because we're calling it out. But now elections are here,
Yeah.
and they're like, hang on, you can stand and you can vote. And you're like thinking, hang on, this is where we need to understand. And this is the point that we're saying, we're in fish out of water here to an extent. This is a very old democracy. They've colonized most of the world
And the minds.
and the minds.
Yeah.
And what are they doing with us here now at this junction with these elections? Because for me, it's like, why would, like I said, decent people, very honest people, credible people from our community, so fed up of what this establishment is doing, but they're allowing to have a voice and allowing to stand. And I've got a few points and thoughts on this.
I think this is going to be an interesting discussion. I think one of the topics we've decided we're going to be talking about is the elections, and I think one of the pertinent questions is to vote or not to vote, because there are differences of opinion on this as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I understand both sides, and I've been on both sides. So this is going to be a very interesting discussion, because I know there are people who are full into, we have to be around the table to make a difference, and there are some people who say no, actually, if it's voting in anybody to support anything which is a law other than Allah's, then that's not permissible. So there's a Sharia aspect to this, which is a debate on its own. But the elections themselves, when we look at how the landscape has changed in how people have become motivated to want a change, I think one thing which is common on both camps is they recognize that a change needs to arise. How that change comes about is going to be up for debate, isn't it? It's going to be a question that we all need to
I think that Majid's point is very, very important, and I think we could even really narrow our own discussions down. If you look at it, subhanAllah, I mean, like you said, Palestine is such a big issue for us, and at the moment nothing else occupies our mind, our hearts, apart from Palestine. But if
or
you
as
look
much as Palestine.
subhanAllah, even now, I just can't get it out of my head. There's a picture a few nights ago, and one of the brothers in Palestine, he was walking to his sister's wedding, and subhanAllah, these animals, they just shot him, and he's lying on the step with his head open and blood coming out, and I can't get this image out of my mind. So how can someone so innocent walking to his sister's wedding be just killed like that?
And that's just scratching the surface.
And why can't this be stopped? The powers to be, who have the power,
It can be stopped.
Why can't they stop
They
this?
don't want
and
it
why
to be
isn't
stopped.
it being stopped? There's these kind of discussions, but linking it to your point from the Ummah's point of view, the power the Ummah's got, whatever it's in its capability, alhamdulillah, one thing is, inshallah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a lot more we can do, but they've actually done a lot.
Yeah.
They've come out.
Yeah.
They've raised their voices.
Yeah.
Now you're at this point, a very pinnacle point where the Ummah wants to do anything, whether it's independent or voting, whatever it is. But the point being is now the Ummah is at this pinnacle point where it wants to do something. What can we do?
Yeah.
Locally, alhamdulillah, when we came together, look how much we've done.
Yeah.
To show what actually is the truth. To show what the Western governments have done, the hypocrisy.
Yeah. And that's a very important point on what we have done locally, because alhamdulillah, the community has been united and it's shown a united front, because it's important to everybody, irrespective of the different thoughts or way
It's
of
the first
ways of
time the mosques have come together.
Second time.
The
second time.
Inshallah, many more times.
But it's the
inshallah,
first
we will.
time they've done so many initiatives,
Yes,
one
it's
after
very
the
good,
other,
mashallah, yes.
for such a long time. That's because the first time was a one-off thing. This second time, this has been consistent. And alhamdulillah, that is amazing to see. But we need to see more of
That's
that,
right.
and more formally as well. That's my personal opinion.
And this is my point, Majid. Do you see that? Inshallah, the July will come, it will go.
Yeah.
The elections will come, they'll go. alhamdulillah, the sentiment and the reason why people are doing it, you can't question that. Yuma really is fed up. It really wants to give the political parties a kick in the teeth, say, you know what you've done, we won't forget, nor will our next generations. You're not here to fool us. You're not allowed back in our masjids. When we needed you to speak and be our voice, you didn't. And we all know why they didn't, and they never will. But now we're not fools that you're going to be able to fool us again. But my point is, after these elections now, how do we keep this momentum going?
The momentum.
That locally, what can we do in our communities to support our brothers and sisters in Palestine and to carry on the good work in our communities?
And on top of that, how we keep that consistent jazba within the community as well. It's not, I think the issue of Palestine has awoken and evoked the emotions out of us. And it's like Ustad Kamil was saying, we're running on adrenaline sometimes, and we become passionate. And then linking that back to our children, our future, what you were talking about. Well, what are we doing to set things up for them for the future?
It's like you spoke about, Majid. There's so much on why I say the biggest shame would be if you put all eggs into this basket in July. We've already spoken about initiatives, alhamdulillah, about yourself, whether it's bringing the Forum of Mosques together, whether it's having representatives that represent our community and our children within the secondary schools, the problems they face. So there's a lot of things we can do collectively, and these are the kind of discussions on this podcast when we come together, that what actually can we do? And when we come together, you'll see that we can make a difference.
Because this path of supporting Palestine, right, it's so far, you're right, it's strong, it's passionate, it's love. You know, we love Masjid al-Aqsa, we love the Deen, and it's coming from that place. But these guys, they don't even call it a genocide.
They can't bring themselves to do
the
that.
ICC, ICJ, whichever council it is, they made verdicts, they've ignored the verdicts.
Well, just yesterday, America Congress, I believe, voted to sanction the ICJ. Is it ICJ or ICC? I think ICJ.
So
they actually voted to sanction them just to protect their illegitimate child.
But you see, the point being is that from our perspective, the passion that we have, we need to turn it into some sort of political capital. And we need to have our eyes open. So, for example, the talk of Netanyahu going, will we see that as victory?
No.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Right? The emergence of a Palestinian state, will we see that as victory? You tell me, those that commit a genocide and support a genocide, and then they say to you, actually, you can have a Palestinian state. I said, Bagala, what is this? You see? So for us, we need to know, they've had this long discussion the day after. For us, what is the end and what is the day after? Do you see my point? And that's a discussion to be had in a very open and frank way, to be honest. Because I'm 100% sure our community will not accept that victory finishes with Netanyahu gone.
But sorry to cut you short, there'll be some that do.
On the whole, yeah.
But that's the sad thing. Because it comes back to what Ustad Kamil was saying, the standards are so low.
Yeah, I can understand it, because he's
been the face of it.
That's
and
right.
I think getting him out
He's
is a victory.
He's going to be a scapegoat.
That's right. And so even today,
but at the same time, Bobby, it comes from a sentiment. Look, that any face now, whether it's the Western leaders, the Muslim leaders, Netanyahu, anyone who's done this, in our eyes and our hearts, we'll never forgive them.
Yeah.
100%.
This is a good sentiment, and we can't knock that.
And you
but
know
now
what,
it is.
Sorry, that sentiment exists in the children,
Yes.
in the mother, in the father, the grandfather, the imam, everyone in our community. The thing for us, I think, is very important, and that's why I think it's good to have this discussion on even the political roadmap of Palestine. Is what do we say is victory, right? And I totally agree with you on this point about the elections. It's here today, is gone tomorrow, right? They have got crisis after crisis after crisis this government has. Sewage in the rivers, NHS waiting lists, right? Social care bill going through the roof. No one wanted to fight for Britain anymore. There's so much.
You're going to be conscribed soon, mate. You're going to be
Yeah.
brought into the army,
see,
mate.
there's
Don't you worry.
there's so
They're
much
thinking of you.
See,
Bobby's already doing NHS. Just
No,
to put the camera
but
on,
look
isn't
at this political campaign so far. It's been about a fortnight since they've been campaigning. This is how the word in Urdu is really bad, right? But this is how bad they are, that they've not even spoken about Palestine.
Harami. Is that what you're referring to?
Please, Majid, you're not from Birmingham.
No, it's just a word.
Yeah,
It's just a technical word.
It's apt.
You know
Yes.
what? They've not even pledged that. Actually, we're going to do this to protect Palestine. Do you see? That's how bad it's literally a swamp.
Well,
See,
this
I
is
think-
why I refer to them as illegitimate child, Israel being the illegitimate child of America, because it's a haram.
See, this is the thing, innit? I think that, when it comes to the Palestine issue, it's so disgusting, and the gaslighting,
Yeah.
the constant barrage of gaslighting that they're doing, they can't admit certain words. They Piers Quandary Morgan goes on with his entire, like, I've got a moral quandary, and the only thing he ever says is, oh, but you got to understand, the ICJ or whoever, they never called it a genocide.
Yeah.
Who called what Hamas did a genocide?
Yeah. Exactly.
Who said that? Which legal body said that? And if you're going to say, no, we're going to split hairs, the simple point is, look, not everyone can understand the geopolitical forces at work when it comes to this issue, right? People can't understand how the international laws work. Not everyone's on the same level of aql, of understanding. So, like, kids, for example, are going to understand this from a completely different perspective than others. So some of my students, these are young girls. They're about year 10 or some, they're about 10, 11 years old. And they said, one of them said, Ustadji, guess what? We're wearing one of the Palestinian scarf. And the teacher said, you can't wear that, or you can't draw the flag. And I said, okay, so what are you going to do? They go, that teacher's racist. I go, okay, calm down. I said, Tariqa, there's a way.
Yeah.
So this is where they just need to be. I go, all you need to do in the future, I say, no, miss, all we know is you guys have taught us that bullying is bad. And right now we see Israel bullying Palestine. They're doing a lot worse than that. They're killing them. Are you telling us we shouldn't speak out against bullies? I genuinely think most of it is just a case of
Framing it.
It's pure framing, because if you frame it in a different way, it changes everything. Like, I've been referring to this, what they're doing, as a Holocaust now. It's more than a genocide. They're literally committing a Holocaust, and they're doing it in front of our eyes. These are the same people. If they were in Germany in the 40s in 1939, they would have said, how dare you go against, be anti-German like this? That's what would have happened. So people, one of my a good family friend, he just said, he's not a Muslim, and he just said to me, he goes, yeah, but Cam, he goes, the reason you are so vehemently against Israel is because you're a Muslim. I said, no, it's because I'm a human. Like, I have love for Palestine because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah tells us to love Palestine.
Yeah.
It's our qibla and so on. And we've got history there. There's no doubt that it's the land of the Prophets. Alayhim salatu wassalam. There's no doubt about that.
There's no doubt that
However,
gives us the edge as
Yes,
well, and
yes.
gives us that extra.
that gives us that extra passion.
yeah.
But the fact that you're framing it that it's only a religious thing.
That's
Who
wrong.
are you to belittle it like that? Why do I? And he goes, maybe don't compare it to Nazi Germany. Maybe Srebrenica. I'll go,
Just to add to this, today
that's better than it.
today is Flag March Day
Yeah.
in Masjid Aqsa.
They're there now. Yeah.
They're there now. And what are they saying?
Kill the Arabs, kill the Muslims.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
And they're openly saying this, bombing Gaza, and then calling us anti-Semitic.
And moral
you can't make
countries
it
got his
up.
fingers
But
in his
even
ear going, la,
Muslim-
la, 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 la.
That's the
On the
difference,
Stars
isn't it?
point, sorry, Miles, is that you look at it now, subhanAllah, a massive movement. One is, like you said, Ustad, that is our affiliation to it. We will never, inshallah, until our last breath, give up speaking, supporting the land of Masjid al-Aqsa, inshallah. But if you look at it now, a massive voice, and just as big, if not bigger, is the non-Muslim voice. Look at the student demonstration. So this family friend of yours, obviously, you look at it and you say, well, actually, you look at the student demonstration, whether it's in America or Britain, actually, these are majority non-Muslims. That anyone with an ounce of humanity would speak up about what's going on.
Yeah.
And with a lot of passion. And that takes me on to the next point that you mentioned as well, Ustad, that one thing that has come out of this, that actually the Western governments and the media have not got an ounce of humanity left.
Yeah.
And they've
actually
exposed
got
themselves.
no more credibility.
They've exposed themselves.
And the more they do, even with today, like you said, with what America did, that the more they do now, and we saw this at the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that the more they try to spread lies, intimidate, propaganda, it was all just having a ripple effect on themselves. They were digging a deeper hole for themselves.
100%.
And the more they were doing it, actually, the people, Muslim or non-Muslim, were seeing this.
Yeah. Before I was gonna say something, but I'm gonna stop because we can continue on this, and
This is
we
a
want it to be.
podcast
This is
on
gonna be
Palestine,
yeah,
not
exactly.
introduction, subhanallah.
But I'm sure the viewers will get to see exactly the kind of conversations we're looking to have, and these are 5 or 6 different topics we've touched on today,
Yes.
just to give you a taste of what we're going to be discussing. But Barry, I'm not going to let you off the hook. There is
Okay.
one topic you've not spoken about.
That
And
none of you wanted to speak about, but you
Right.
wanted me to speak
So
about.
you-
Look, you had
you
my
ha-
dinner before I came, not when I'm going back.
So can all the ladies leave the room?
Right. This one topic, you want to give us a little bit of an intro into this topic of yours, which we're going to be discussing, inshallah.
I think the main thing is the topics we want to discuss. They're
No.
not just philosophical.
Listen.
Yeah?
Don't do that. That's not going to work. Don't do the political stuff. I know we've been talking about
so
politics.
Majid said I spoke about.
Actually, you know what?
Ustad Gamal is my witness to this. That Majid said he spoke about feminism and he's got his podcast closed down. So, Brian,
It didn't get closed down.
So,
but I got
Brian,
threats.
can you?
I got threats. I
So,
got
Brian,
threats,
can you
though.
speak about it? I said, fine.
You're
I'll
the big
do-
brother, isn't it? You know
Yes.
what I mean? You're going to take this slack.
So, like we said, we're talking about topics that actually affect the community, and a
Sure.
massive topic is feminism and this whole misogynist thing. And you can see now it's a bit of a push and a pull thing. Like Ustad said, that actually is one of the biggest things that's destroying marriages now. It's a real issue, and I think these kind of things, not in any belittling way or just to have a go. I think these are kind of open discussions we need to have, and when you discuss them, people actually realize, well, actually, I can see where that line should be drawn. And for us, you can see that this balance, they can't even get it right today. Career or children, putting the kids to sleep or shisha lounge. You know, guys and girls now, that balance they can't get right. But we see at the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when they were burying their daughters alive, this whole thing about women's rights and men's rights and the relationship and where that balance is, you could see this is why we're Muslims and this is why Islam is a way of life, because it resolved this issue. And I think this is it's a massive thing. You know, we even spoke about people like Andrew Tate, who, you know, a lot of guys out there, this whole misogynist kind of view, and it's big at the moment. But actually, where is that balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. And on that note, we're gonna wrap this up because we've been on it for an hour, whether you realize it or not.
Subhanallah.
And this is what happens. So, ladies and gents, there you have it. This is the very first episode, and obviously this was an intro episode, an introduction to our co-hosts and an introduction to the topics that we're gonna be discussing. So, stay tuned because there are a lot of fireworks that are going to be cracking off this season. And we'll see you on the next one. Before I actually close this, don't forget to subscribe. We never do this, and we never push the channels. So whether you're on Facebook, Bedos Media, you can look up for my name as well, Majid Waris, on YouTube, Instagram. I believe I need to be on TikTok. I have to finally succumb into this because they tell me that I have to be on TikTok. So we'll look into that. If anybody
Go
wants
for
to,
it. Go
if
for
anybody
it.
wants
Well,
to
me and
manage.
Bobby need to get on Facebook first, but
If
Same.
anybody,
Same.
in fact, anybody wants to be a part of this and manage our social media for us, that would even be better. But it's been a fantastic first episode of Great Conversations, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.
Waalaikumsalam.